Amythyst Kiah, thank you so much for joining us here in the Current Studios. My name is Zach McCormick. Great to be with you here. Your new album, Still and Bright, is out now, and your breakthrough record, Wary and Strange, a favorite of ours and our listeners here on The Current. They really connected with that kind of personal storytelling that you were doing on that album. What were your creative priorities when it came time to make this new record versus your kind of breakthrough with Wary and Strange, and how did that differ maybe from the breakthrough album?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I really had to kind of reimagine my entire approach to songwriting, because most of my songwriting was, kind of born out of a catharsis, and emotional turmoil and grief. And, after spending, at this point, 5 or 6 years in, going to therapy and drinking more water and eating my vegetables and trying to actively take care of myself and work through my, work through my mental blocks, as it were. I got to a point where I kind of realized that, well, what am I going to write about now? Right. And that was the unintended consequence of taking better care of myself and working through the mental health stuff was that. So I quite literally, I got on YouTube and typed in songwriting and just started watching different videos of people talking about their various techniques. And then I came across How to Write One Song by Jeff Tweedy, and that
cool.
It was great. The way he kind of really broke down songwriting and kind of, demystified it a little bit and got down to the nuts and bolts of it. And it kind of made it, so it just really kind of, really helped expand my, approach.
Totally.
And so, so I got into, well, what am I interested in? What do I like? And then just kind of going into, stories that I like that inspired me, or, creating my own story, or with characters that aren't me, And so, yeah, it was a chance to really kind of explore just different topics, things that are outside of myself. I think one of the things when you're writing a confessional album, it gets so you get so absorbed in it. And one of the things that happened during the album campaign of Wary and Strange another unintended consequence is continuously talking about my trauma and grief over and over and over again.
Right? Yeah.
Was that was also kind of taking a toll, on top of the fact that, trying to tour a label debut during a pandemic.
Yeah.
Omicron really messed up a lot of tour dates, so the whole thing, it was just very so it was an amazing time, to be recognized for for what I have to share. But it was also after all of that, I spent a lot of time just, continuing to further my meditation practice and continuing to kind of assess what worked, what didn't, because if I'm going to be, continuing to tour, continuing to write songs, I got to find a way to make this work so that I'm not burnt out. And because that affects creativity immensely, and and a lot of us, a lot of artists had a really tough time. I mean, there's a lot of artists that got so exhausted that they had to cancel their tours, and totally. And it's just, we're all out here trying to get it and grab every opportunity, but at some point it's at what cost,
right.
Being able to slow down and assess things and be able to be better at saying no. And that's going to be different for everybody, of course. But that was what I had to kind of do. So it was a little bit of soul searching. And through that, one of the things I also realized I needed to do in order to expand my songwriting was to start co-writing with other people that have been doing it for a really long time. And so, because I knew that was going to be, I remembered my experience when I did the project Songs for Our Native Daughters, and it was my first time really co-writing, and it seemed less daunting because it was about a topic, that obviously it was connected to, I was connected to it in an historical and a social sense, but it was still a topic outside of me talking about myself, Right. And so it's different when all of your songs are confessional. The idea of co-writing with someone else is oh my God, there's no way. Right. I don't want anybody to see any of this until I'm totally done. Right. So, but I knew in order to like I said, in order to like continue to expand and write about different topics, and and also just learn, just be able to, learn how to, keep working, and to not, to be able to like learn how to like keep up with like writing all the time every day, even if it's, a few sentences, as long as I'm doing something every day, or at least on most days. And just also getting a chance to see how other songwriters work too.
Totally, yeah.
Some of them had studios, and we were able to like cut a demo right then. And then it also got me into like really digging in more to like, working on demos at home on GarageBand, and that really, so the whole thing, just everything from, the actual mechanics of songwriting to, the songwriting process, like incorporating, recording demos, and, also kind of getting into like what it's like to produce and to kind of think from the mindset of a producer's perspective. Like, so all of that's just really fascinating to me, and particularly working with Butch Walker has been really fun, because because like he was just super open about, me picking his brain. He even like, in some of my demos, like he gave me like some tips here and there, some stuff I was trying to do, and like a better way to do it. And then also like some of the stuff that I did in the demo, he like in GarageBand, like he like kept on some of the songs for the record. So
cool.
Because he's of the mind of like, I'm not precious if it doesn't have to come out of my studio. He's like, I can't tell you how many tracks I've gotten out of GarageBand from people that sound amazing, and I'm like, well, it sounds great already. I can go in and do my thing, So yeah, it was great. And everybody I worked with, like Sean McConnell, Sadler Vaden, Avi Kaplan, and Jeremy Latito, Tim Armstrong. Yeah, I don't think I'm leaving anybody out. Yeah, and also I wrote a couple of songs with Butch as well on the record. So it was just great to see everybody's process and how they do things. And yeah, so
it's been a cool kind of cross-section of artists too, because like Butch, Tim Armstrong, they got this world and kind of this foot in the rock world, maybe even some like kind of punk rock energy from those guys, and then some of the folks that you were mentioning, a little bit more of the Americana sound. Were you getting like different musical perspectives while you're also getting these new ideas? What was that process like, opening up and like kind of relinquishing a little of maybe that creative control? Was it invigorating, scary at all? What was that kind of decision-making process for you?
It was invigorating and a little scary.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
because especially, I came to Nashville. I think it was at the beginning of, I want to say the beginning of maybe 2022 or 2023. I get it mixed up, but but it was like I was set up. My A&R guy at Concord, Mark Williams. I've been working with him now ever since I signed with the label, and he's we've had some great conversations about where I want to take my career. I'm interested in being like a career artist. I'm not trying to be like, having a billion streams or whatever. That's not as important to me as just having a sustainable career,
Totally.
And so and that's what he wanted too. That's why he's at Concord, because that's promoted there, at that at that label. So so I was set up with like, I think it was 5 days in a row. Like I just basically it was almost like this kind of like speed dating in a way.
Boot camp or something like that.
Because you're like meeting people that you haven't met yet. All you're going on is like, the music that you've heard. And for me, I kind of was like, based on who I was going to meet, I'd be like, oh, well, I think this person would be good for these songs I'm working on,
Oh, totally, yep.
And so then I would go in and we'd talk for like an hour or two, just get to know one another. And then just about every time we'd come out with a demo or at least an almost finished song, and I would maybe with God's Under the Mountain, the second verse I wrote on my own at home, but a lot of the time we were able to just finish it all right there and have a demo and everything. And I saw the power of like having a studio when making demos. Like when you write a song, it's like you can have something right then ready to go to send to the label and the management and everything. So yeah, it helped me like learn how to be like more organized with my songwriting and with demos and with it. Yeah. Although it's funny because with demos, what would end up happening is I would like get really carried away and act like I was producing a song, and they'd be like, "Hey, like you can go ahead and like sometimes I would hang on to it a little too long because I'd be trying to tweak stuff, and they're like, "Don't stop doing that. Just
a demo.
Literally a vocal and a guitar on a voice memo would be fine." But I kind of anytime I really get into something, I go very extra. But and I've gone back and listened to some of that stuff that I was tweaking now, and I'm like, God, that was why did I put that phaser on that acoustic guitar like that? That sounds crazy. So anyway,
it sounded cool. You were playing with sounds. It sounds like you're maybe got some producer skills that you're trying to flex. Maybe somewhere down the road. Is that something would you'd like to do if you learned a little bit from this process? Maybe add more of those tools to your.
I think I definitely would like to be interested in getting into producing. I don't know what capacity. I mean, right now I'm kind of practicing that on my own stuff when I write songs, but I would like to continue to kind of develop it and just see where it goes. I don't want to put the cart too far ahead of the horse there. But I definitely am fascinated with especially with working with Tony Berg for the first record. That was kind of like a moment of seeing the way a producer thinks about sound, and he had such a unique way of looking at sound. I think on that song Hangover Blues, there's a sample in the beginning that's sort of like Tibetan chants, and that was literally from what is it, it was like a toy, not a toy, but a tourist trinket from Tibet.
Oh, cool.
That it had 7 or 8 different pre-recorded chants on it, and he was just like, I have an idea, and he grabs this and just records it and then takes the sample and then adds it. So it was just cool also to see the way that using samples in songs too, which usually you kind of associate with either ambient music or hip hop or something like that.
Totally.
But to incorporate some of that in in my music, I thought it was super fun thing. So yeah, it's I think between him and also again, also with working with Butch, it's just getting an idea of how different people work, and just so it's been really inspiring to really work with all these people, the studio musicians as well, seeing what it really takes to be a studio musician, to be able to come in and have not really heard any of the songs and be able to take good direction, but also have a good feel for what should go where, so it's just cool. It's such a cool process. The studio is a really fun place to me. So I really have been enjoying the past few years being able to have this opportunity to to work with the big dogs,
That's
so
great.
It's been cool.
Joined by Amythyst Kiah right now in studio, talking about your new album, Still and Bright, out now. We're talking about this in the current. You were just mentioning the session players that you had on the record. Billy Strings guests on the album, doing a song called "I Will Not Go Down," which I think makes some lyrical references to the Crusades, which is super cool. And he's really ripping on that song. You're a potent instrumentalist yourself, so was it important for you to preserve space for those instrumental passages on the record, in addition to your great vocals and lyrics?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, especially because with "I Will Not Go Down," when we first recorded it, we had a conversation, me and Butch, because we co-wrote the song with me. We'd had a conversation, about Iron Maiden and symphonic metal, and just talking about a bunch of stuff. And so when we first recorded that song, there was a really crunchy guitar. There was my banjo was had a distortion pedal on it, and then he put down some Iron Maiden style drums, so it was full on was going into
Run to
the metal
hills.
Yeah, exactly. And it was funny because we did that, and also we kind of did something similar with Never Alone, where that one had a octave fuzz situation on a Epiphone SG, so it was again getting pretty heavy.
Cool.
And it was funny because it just because those two songs compared with the other songs that I had written in the direction that they were going, it was going to be too stark of a
wasn't going to fit
difference. So the mission was, how do we take these metal songs and still keep them metal? How can we make it metal without it being metal?
Totally.
And really, when you take the drums away and you put in a bass and you put in all acoustic instruments, it turned into a bluegrass song with clawhammer banjo, which is associated mostly with old time music, but it was fun to play with it in that context. And then I'd been wanting to do something with Billy Strings for quite some time, because I've been a fan ever since Turmoil and Tinfoil.
Totally.
So and I thought to myself, bluegrass is the metal of folk. He's got
Totally.
his toes kind of like in both worlds, you know. So I was like, I think this would be the perfect song for him to just lay down some really sick acoustic stuff. And he did what I hoped would happen naturally. I didn't want to direct it, but like in some of his jams on some of his songs, like there's this like crescendo that builds up.
Cool. Yeah.
I can't really describe it very well, but it's just
it's almost like he's revving the engine. He's like building the power of his riff or something.
Like it builds up and builds and builds. Oops, sorry. It builds up and builds and builds, and then it just like explodes back into the beat. And like it's one of those things you just kind of have to hear it. I can't explain it, but I'm sure there's somebody, a music theory whiz, that could break it down.
Yeah, totally.
But I was hoping that would happen, and I wanted it to be an organic thing, and it did happen in the song later on, and then I guess in the last part of the song during the outro for "I Will Not Go Down," and that was such a magical moment to hear that and be like, oh my God, that's on my song.
Totally.
You know?
And
I got to like, you know, and I was there when he stopped by the studio. So I was there and I was able to meet him and be there, you know, for the recording, because we'd already recorded everything else. And it was just amazing to just hear him. It was just like, he just did 8 takes of some of the wildest, you know, just his, you know, what he does, you know?
Totally.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's awesome.
And it was Butch's first time meeting him too, so it was all man, it was great.
That sounds really sweet.
Yeah.
Another great player on the record, Ellen Angelico, plays guitar on a couple of different tracks, including Silken Petals, which you played for us during this session. Sounded great.
Mm-hmm.
I've read that one was inspired by a story from The Haunting of Bly Manor, the series, and also kind of like the Lady of the Lake, the tale that it was originally based on. I've kind of heard you're like a sci-fi, you know, like
I really
like horror movies, that kind of stuff. Is that sort of a part of the soup of inspiration for making this record a little bit?
Definitely, yeah. Even if I'm not talking about my own turmoil, I still love to sing about other. I still like to hear about other people's turmoil. But I've just always been a big fan, especially of like, you know, like cosmic horror, like H.P. Lovecraft,
totally, very
Lovecraftian horror. So yeah, I've always really been into that, and like psychological thrillers. And it's funny though, because it's like jump scares are what really like actually terrify me, which is really annoying.
Same problem. Yeah.
You know, I remember one time, this is a little off topic, but I went to go see Hereditary at like 8:00 at night. I had a day off on tour and I was just on my own, and went to this movie theater I really love that's in Williamsburg called the Nighthawk movie theater, and it's super dope. Anyway, I went, and I knew that it was like a psychological thriller, but I didn't think it was going to be terrifying. And so I'm sitting there, and there's these jump scares, and it's like insane. And then like at the end, I'm like, I get out, it's 10:00, and I'm like, oh no, it's nighttime, and I have to like catch it was crazy. So I learned my lesson. I'm gonna start like doing research. Are there jump scares in this? I want one day to overcome my fear of jump scares, because I just feel like a little kid that you know, pulling the sheet up over my face. But it's one of my weaknesses I'd like to overcome one day. But regardless, like it was just fun to, especially with Gods Under the Mountain, just like that was inspired by Old Gods of Appalachia.
Oh, cool.
And Die Slowly Without Complaint was also inspired by Old Gods of Appalachia too. But yeah, it's like what I love about it is it's a cosmic horror story, but it's set in Appalachia, and Cthulhu lives under the mountain as opposed to like coming from outer space or under the ice, you know? And I just think it's cool because it's like, you know, there's a lot of us in Appalachia love all that. I mean, like, we're like the land of, you know, cryptids, you know? So
totally.
We're all into all that spooky stuff. So it's only fitting that, you know, finally have a good old Cthulhu story coming out of Appalachia. So, and then the guy, one of the guys that travels with the live show and writes and has written some songs for the show and done some voice acting. He like owns a hair salon and like cuts my hair, and he was also a singer-songwriter. So it's like just cool to like having something so awesome come for our area and like actually like know some of the people that are in it. It's a special thing. So, but yeah,
that's cool. Great. And it made its way onto your record here. Still and Bright, new album out now from Amythyst Kiah. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's been a blast having you in here.
Hell yeah, thank you.
The Current is public media made possible thanks to member support.